welcome everybody. This is our third podcast. I think the last one we did on using the online tech platform, and we are back to where we started.
Back in Dubai.
Back in Dubai, back in Foundry. I kind of like the vibe here. I think it's amazing, right? So I really hope that they actually upgrade the room, honestly speaking.
Yeah.
And it's so good to catch up with both of you. I've met you recently, but you are meeting after a long time, so.
Yeah, awesome. And we are at the Foundry, and the Foundry is like a really interesting place because right now they've got an exhibition on featuring local artists,
right.
And it's all about spirituality, which is really fascinating.
It's amazing.
Yeah, and it's about the language beyond the words.
Ah, wow.
So, absolutely relevant place to be right now.
Wow, and the energy is amazing as well here, I feel, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Only a Mark can afford to do this.
Yeah.
But it's amazing that they do have that amongst all the residential complexes around here.
Yeah.
Just imagine living across, which you do,
yeah.
And just walking across here and working. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
So it's amazing.
Immerse one of the big property developers in Dubai, probably the biggest, right?
Yeah.
And
Probably.
the original biggest.
Yeah.
And what they do is they support the communities. So it's really good. Like it's really placemaking, isn't it? It's not just like building buildings and leaving you to it. Like there's a real sense of community in this area.
And you also don't miss much in terms of what you're probably used to back in UK or wherever, if you had ecosystems like this, they've actually replicated that. I think for all kinds of communities and backgrounds of people, which is amazing.
And I probably shouldn't say this, but the co-working spaces here are free. So that's quite unusual because all the others are paid for. So again, that creates a good community vibe as well for people who do that.
But honestly, when I compared the podcast facilities across Dubai, this was not only just affordable, but also easily accessible, right? I mean, you're right on the boulevard.
Oh yeah.
You just walk in.
Free parking.
Free parking
underneath.
So which is kind of cool. Yeah. Great. So what's happening?
What's happening?
What are we talking about today? Let's ideate a few topics, and we'll do what we do best, which is have a conversation.
Yeah. Well, what are the big things that have happened over the summer? Because, in Dubai, one of the traditions is that some people go away, some people stay.
Yeah.
So it changes the whole dynamic of Dubai for a little while, doesn't it? And me personally, I was in Europe quite a lot. And what were you guys doing?
I think I've been the only diehard being here in Dubai the whole time. As you guys know, I have my pets, my 2 dogs and a horse. So for me, summer is always super important to stay put because it's the most crucial time to manage the animals in such extreme heats.
Yeah.
For example, we do have AC stables for the horses, which is a must. But even then, still they come out into the heat, into the AC, they stop drinking. There's many factors that are risk factors.
Yeah.
So I prefer to be a bit more on top of that and take those responsibilities. And work-wise and concept-wise, project-wise, it's always a lot quieter during the summer in Dubai.
Yeah.
And now we're beginning of October, and you really feel that everything is starting to pick up. People are getting in the mood again, energetic. Everybody's
things are coming back.
Yeah. Everybody's back.
Weather's getting better.
Yeah.
Weather is definitely getting better.
And there's just a whole load of events that start kicking off, aren't there? So I'm every night almost. Even this morning I was at events, and I guess the big one that's coming up in Dubai is COP28.
Yeah.
So that's the first time Dubai's hosted, the climate change, whatever you want to call it. It's not a conference. It's more of a snapshot in time of where we're at as a planetary community. So there's going to be a lot of things going on around that, and I know we're all sort of involved in different ways.
Yeah. Amazing. And for me, one of the interesting thing is I'm kind of getting used to this whole travel thing between Dubai and India, and now 3 years into being in Dubai, traveling back to take care of the business, also traveling here. I met up with Janine. We went to Thailand for 4 nights. So Dubai is so amazing. I'm actually experiencing the advantage of the geography, literally the connectivity, both from my wife's perspective and for me, to hop in and out of countries and yet living here. It's kind of really cool. It's one thing to think about it. It's another thing to actually live that.
Yeah.
And you're not traveling 10 hours. You're just traveling a few hours and you're in a different country.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool. And so I think part of my summer was kind of travel a lot of that, both for work as well as for pleasure. And then now I'm back here and looking forward to the winter, which is amazing in Dubai all the time. So yeah.
And it's confusing, isn't it? Because this is my first winter.
Okay.
And it feels like we're going into summer. You know, because it's like everyone's coming, everyone's like on holiday. It's got that holiday summer vibe to it. But it's not, it's winter.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's actually really confusing.
You're going to love it. I mean, I think winters are the best time. If this is your first winter, it's going to be an amazing one.
It's so worth
amazing,
being here.
Yeah. No, seriously, like people literally don't. And now with the COP28, you're going to have visitors from around the world also come in. Lots of concerts and stuff. So it's going to be an amazing winter. So yeah, looking forward to it. Amazing. Great. So I think if I remember correctly, the last two podcasts that we did, we spoke about spirituality, what it meant. And then I think we focused a lot on that. And in every podcast of ours, we always give a perspective from our journey on the particular topic. And then I think we moved into relationships, is I think what we did in the second one, right?
Yeah.
Which is kind of great, and I think all of us have gotten amazing feedback from our conversations, right? I literally, people have told me also in India and also you and Michael, you about how well we have done all the topics. So I don't know what we're going to talk about as we build this up. I'm sure there'll be topics based on what we have experienced recently and otherwise, and let's touch upon those and just share our views and thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the big one that happened to me this summer was I lost my mother. So just going through that whole process around like the shock of it, I guess, you know, and I know you've been through something not very long ago as well. And
Exactly a year ago.
Exactly a year ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, your father,
My dad,
Yeah. So that was a really interesting period because it was unexpected, and a lot. I realised a lot, you know, as I went through that process, and obviously there's a lot of emotions come up. There's a lot of energy comes up, and it comes up in different ways. And for me, as the like the oldest, well, the only child, I had to like deal with a lot of the logistics, you know, so actually organising things, organising the funeral, organising the estate, all those things, and I had to do it quickly because I was only in the UK for a short amount of time. So what that meant is that I didn't really focus on the emotional side of it whilst I was there. It was very much like, okay, I've got to do, I've got all these things that I have to do. And actually that was sort of helpful because it distracted me a little bit from what really happened, you know. But then coming back to Dubai, that's when, you know, you process the emotions, and I don't know what your experience was, but for me it was like a very, very intense, interesting period over somewhere around that.
For sure, it was such a moment of realization that this is something I've been always, I don't know if it's struggling, but always confused or curious about, is the transition. So one moment you're alive, you're kicking, you're laughing with each other, and the next moment you're in this horror movie and you see your loved one passing away. My situation was that I was actually there with my dad, together with my sister and my mom and my brother. But mainly my sister and myself were there while he was transitioning. And that's been the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And in that period was when he passed, us as a family, we actually were so happy and relieved. And from that moment, it gives you some sort of strength to indeed go into the actions and say, okay, we need to do this, we need to sort that, we need to arrange these things. Interestingly enough, companies around that benefit from this business play on your emotions. So you kind of have to be strong to be business-like and stay focused on the journey, what you discussed as a family. And while you kind of celebrate the transition of this person, when time goes on, you start to grieve, you start to miss, and there's so many stages, and now I'm a year in, and it just hits you every now and again, and it's just like, oh my gosh, I can't pick up the phone. I can't call. I can't FaceTime. I used to FaceTime daily. Now I do with my mom. I daily FaceTime her, but with my dad, I'm like, there's so many questions in this turbulent year that I've had that I just want to talk to him, and you can't.
Yeah, that's a big one, that, isn't it? Because like I feel like I've processed this really quickly, and yet this morning I thought, oh, I can't call my mum, and I wanted to call her about something, and I just realised, like, she's not there. Okay, you know. For me, I experienced the opposite though. Like, so when you said about other people using this as a business, I was actually genuinely shocked all the support that was given to me. You know, there was like friends of the family that just appeared there at exactly the right time. The funeral people were amazingly gracious. Like everybody who I spoke to just wanted to help. You know, everybody. It was really beautiful, and it made me like realize how amazing human beings can be. You know, as a community, when they'll support you. Like, people I hadn't seen for like 40, 50 years, you know, relatives that I'd never even met, just appeared out of nowhere and were incredibly supportive. And that was really actually a beautiful part of the experience, you know, to see that. Because I guess for a long time, being the only child, I've always been anxious about how I would manage, because I've never, well, we buried my father 30 years ago, but that wasn't me, you know, that was like my mother, and but this was me, and I always knew this was going to be my responsibility to do this. And I always thought, how am I going to do it? Because I've never done this before. There's no one around to support me. It's just me. Like, I have to do it all. And especially that now that I live in another country makes it even more challenging. But it just, in reality, it wasn't like that. In reality, it was a really, everything just, it was almost like the universe was helping me. You know, everything just appeared at the right time. It was really beautiful.
I think, you know, so Janine lost her father early this year. And I think although I didn't lose my parents directly, for me, I experienced what you both experienced through her. And I think one can never be ready or prepared, even if you have a parent who is ill and suffering. Because I think when a transition happens, it's so, as an experience, so new that no matter how mentally you're prepared for it, you're never prepared for it. And I think your life does change completely, because that's when you understand how deep of an emotion or a connection you have with that person, and how much we take things for granted when our loved ones are around us. And you know, we pick up fights about or misunderstandings about things which are so insignificant, and you only realize that when that person is not there. And that happens, and that's something that I became very mindful of. Not that we as a family experience anything drastic emotionally, but I felt like there are times when we all get emotional in a situation. It could be something really insignificant that we fight with, you know, our parents, our siblings, our friends, and we don't realize that once we don't have that relationship, we won't have the opportunity to have that emotion. And I think that's something that, you know, was something that I experienced and learned through the grieving process that Janine went through. And what I felt was more what she felt. Like, you know, here, I can, if you're so close to your dad, I can only imagine what that pain could be for you. For me, I was going through that experience with her. And that was more painful because she was grieving, but me knowing that I couldn't help, because that relationship is so sacred. There's no way you can compensate that or help that. And I think that's, so I always say, you know, when now I speak to my parents, and if I ever see my parents arguing or having a conversation which they both don't agree to, I always sort of, you know, that's what, you know, my father-in-law has taught me through his transition. I always tell them, let's be mindful. We don't have time in our hand. So whatever you guys are doing, if it's not that significant, just enjoy the time with each other. Yeah. And I think that's very, very important.
Very, very. And by going through these stages and these experiences, which are extremely tough, for me, it's been more of a mission to even bring out more love within each other, as you said. Like, hey, take away, is there actually an issue? And instead of looking to get your point out there. Just understand that somebody might be dealing with something
Yes.
at that stage that we don't know about.
Yeah.
You know, we're all human, and I think it's so important to try harder to care for each other and to show love and to be respectful with each other and say it out loud what you respect in one another.
Yeah.
Compared to always trying to look at that one negative.
Mm.
Because as it is, it can be gone in seconds.
In seconds, yeah.
You know?
Yeah. True. Absolutely. And I became more conscious of spending time with my parents. And this is something Janine has always told me, but like something I've actually started living with, is because you can't take life for granted in general. And that could be true for any relationship, right? It doesn't have to be only for parents. And we oftentimes don't value the people we have because we feel that that opportunity is timeless, which it really is not.
And it's not just people, it's nature, it's the current situation
Yeah.
you're in. I mean, we're sitting here now, the studio is now here.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we're
It's
the last
gone.
podcast
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
And they take it apart, and then we want to do it again. No, you can't.
You can't.
And you can't take back
True.
what's been in the past. And I just literally 2 weeks ago had a very, very traumatic experience with a horse. One moment he's alive, next moment you're giving first aid 2 hours straight trying to keep
Wow.
the creature alive. And unfortunately the horse didn't make it, but that moment is so intense when you see the morning the horse is fine, you look them in the eyes and it's there. Couple of hours and a horror movie further and it's gone.
Yeah.
And it's not touchable anymore.
Mm.
It's gone. The package is there, but the soul is gone straight away. Don't know how you've experienced that with your mom. And that is, for me, I hold on to the soul, that the spirit is there. So that's where I still have the energy and the good communication with people who have transitioned on. But it's so interesting to see that the package, it's just a package that we're all in.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, when I didn't actually see my mother pass, the lead up to it was really interesting in itself. But I actually got to the hospital an hour after she died. So the doctor asked if I wanted to see her. And honestly, I didn't. You know, I felt that was a weird, like, just for me, it just felt the wrong thing to do. But then, you know, she was a Christian, and a priest came and he talked to me and he said, do you want to come and do the blessing? So I did go and see her body, and it was just a body. Like, it wasn't her. And it was really one of the most strangest experiences I've ever had in my life, that it was just an empty body. And I'm glad I did it, but at the same time, it was such a weird experience, you know, because it wasn't my mother. And I didn't really feel her again until the actual funeral. And when we were in the funeral itself, you know, we played 3 of her favourite songs. And I could almost, and it wasn't just me, like other people were there saying, I could feel her in the room, like smiling and laughing. Because one of the songs is like, Tina Turner, You're Simply the Best. And it just seemed like slightly inappropriate, but exactly what she would have wanted, you know. Yeah. And so then I felt her soul come back. And what was interesting is because she was quite old, like a lot of her close friends had already died, you know, they'd already transitioned. So in the funeral, there would have been a lot of people who should have been there but weren't there because of her age, you know, because they'd already passed. And when I came back to Dubai, I felt I had all these mixed emotions going on, and I hadn't really processed anything. And I felt like I knew that I was bottling all this stuff up. You know, I knew that, in fact, I went to see an energy healer, and she literally said to me, you've got so many emotions in your system right now. But I felt like I had nothing. I felt like I was just like a brick wall. It was the weirdest feeling. And I actually went to a concert at Dubai Opera, and the guys who were on were from England, and I'd never seen them in concert before, and they were from Yorkshire, and Yorkshire's got a particular sense of humour, and they were being very sarcastic on stage, and actually all the songs were incredibly sad. And they're almost laughing about it. They're like, it's okay if everyone cries, it's absolutely fine. Like, they're very sad songs, like, we're all going to get upset tonight. And I just started crying. I was like, whoa, like, where's this coming from? And all that emotion just started to come out. And the day after, I had this incredible dream. And I dreamt that I was actually at a funeral on the other side. So it was like a funeral with all their friends who passed away. My father was there. Everybody was there. There was like hundreds and hundreds of like flowers and cards and it was beautiful. And I just realised like she's in a better place over there, you know. And there was this resolution and peace that came through. And actually the day after that, I had such a strong sense that she was there then. And what had happened that was really interesting as well, that I talked to my mentor about as well, was that while she was on Earth, I always saw her as a mother, like, so in the role of a mother, and me in the role of a son, and all the good and bad that has. You know, you never have a perfect relationship with your parents. There's always some tension, and that was always there, like this tension between us, even though we loved each other. Like, there's always like this, I'm the mother, I'm the son type thing. But now I experience it totally differently. I experience it like as a soul, as like a pure feminine energy and just a pure love. And it's a very different experience because I've dropped that sense that she's a role, you know, in this world, because her body's gone, like she's just a pure spirit now. And it's actually really beautiful to realise that we are all just these pure beings, but we're trapped in all these roles and bodies, and you know, we all know about that, don't we? You know, our bodies have these limitations, our minds have these limitations, but we're beyond that, really.
It's amazing that you say that, and you know, going back to the example which you narrated, both of you narrated, right? So when you see somebody, just the body, you instantly in your heart say, you know, I'm going to see you someday, and I'm going to meet you there. The fact that even that thought comes in your mind, you understand at that moment that none of us are a physical form. We know it inside us, but we recognize it. We actually, when we see a loved one who is not there anymore. And for me, that's an instant acknowledgement of us knowing who we are, and that we are not the body, the mind, the intellect. And so the question is then, who transitioned, and is there a transition, and is there ever a death? Or is it just somebody going from a form to a formless, or a form to another form? And as you transition between the forms, you lose the identity, of course, for your soul to sort of evolve. And I think if you look at it from that perspective, then there is no death per se, right? It's just a transition, which is why I like the word transition more than death, because I kind of feel like if a particular form consciousness has had the experience in this life, and if the body starts suffering for some reason, and it needs to evolve because the body is not able to sustain the energy anymore, and the energy needs to find another form for it to evolve. And so therefore, you never lose the person. I mean, today, if you think about it, for both of you, if you want your mom or your father to be next to you, he'll come in a second. You just have to sit and think about him, as opposed to you taking a flight, going down there, you taking a flight, going down there, and meeting and interacting with your parents when they were alive. So actually, they come closer to us in a formless context than a form context. And I think this is something that Janine and I have spoken a lot about, that, you know, when you now, as the next generation, live with the values that you learn from your dad and her example, you actually find him closer to you, closer than what he was before. Sure, the physical part of having that conversation, she used to, you know, like you, she used to talk to her dad every night. So she would actually grieve and kind of have a tough time every night when she's not able to do that. But that is coming from her attachment she had from an ego perspective with that experience. But that doesn't make him go away from her, you know. And he, if, in the real sense, she finds him really, really close whenever she's with her own self. And I think it's a very tough one to go through that transition mentally. And I'm saying it is easier. I can't feel that unless I have lost my parents directly. But I think that I understand it intellectually, that perhaps this is one way one can heal, to understand that they are actually around us all the time. So I keep getting these angel numbers, you know, the 111s.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And every time I get these angel numbers, I used to send it to Janine. I'm like, man, damn it, it's happened again.
Yeah.
And it's happened again. And you know, she's like, what are you up to that dad is checking up on you? You know? And I said, nothing. Maybe he just likes my company more than yours. You know, I think, but it's interesting that, what the entire grieving process is and how important, like you said, community, people, friends are when you're going through that.
Very important.
So
it's I'm gonna like move the topic on a little bit because I think what you said is really interesting and relevant to you and your life, because you know you do feel like even when someone has transitioned or we don't really know what happens after death, we have no idea, but we sense it. You know, we sort of have a knowing. Like I definitely know that the closest people to me who've passed away, I felt their presence after they've died. So like I feel their energy. And I'm just wondering because, you know, in your personal life, like you're not always physically together with your wife, right? And I would imagine that you have a sense of each other all the time. Yeah. Like I know in relationships where I'm really close to someone, I can think about them and all of a sudden there's a message there from them. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And there's like there's a connection beyond the physicality. Yeah. And do you experience that?
Yeah, absolutely. And let me drastically draw that from a future perspective. And if ever, God forbid, a situation comes between both of us that we have to transition because things can happen unexpectedly. I would like to believe that both of us would be happy knowing that we gave that opportunity to the other one to live the way they really wanted. Not just from a freedom perspective, but even from an expression perspective. And I think that's so empowering and that's so helpful for you to even sort of come to terms with transition. Because then you actually kind of feel that, not from an egoistic perspective, but you kind of felt like you gave meaning to somebody just through freedom. And I think that's very, very powerful. And I think with any transition, the way, everything, Michael, oftentimes is very perspective driven, right? So if we look at it from one perspective, let's say my father, if he's suffering today, I'm attached to him, so I want him to be with me, but he's suffering. But you see a body where the soul has transitioned, they look so peaceful. And so therefore what has happened, the soul was suffering, the body is peaceful, the soul could not sustain the body because of the body decaying over a period of time. That could be injuries, that could be illness, could be anything. So that's why whenever somebody transitions, you always look at the body and say, wow, so peaceful, looks so amazing compared to what we experienced yesterday, the day before, whatever that means. And I kind of have started understanding those elements, it's just how we perceive it. But my ego, with the memories I had, let's say with my father-in-law, of us barbecuing together, living amazing, 15, 16, 17 years that I've been a part of Janine's family, I'm going to physically miss that because that's not going to ever happen again. But I can only deal with that with gratitude. That, he spent those amazing years with us and taught us so much. So I always tell Janine, let's understand what Dad taught us. And if we can live in that path, that's the best way he would have wanted us to look at his transition. And I think, again, like I said, I can't live that emotion unless I've gone through it. But that's something that we talk about a lot.
Yeah.
I have an interesting experience on that. Well, I mean, after my mother passed, my mentor actually turned around and said to me, now your mum is really going to become one of your mentors. Which I thought was really fascinating. And it's happened. It really has happened. And actually, so a little story, like when she was getting ill, she went into hospital. And we actually had a trip to Israel. So we went to Israel and we were in Jerusalem. And there was a call came through from one of the doctors and they were saying, what the situation was and everything. And I said, just be real with me. Like, is she going to die? Like, I want to know because if she is, I'll come back, like, or we'll change plans. Oh, no. She's like, if she's going to die, it'd be weeks or months or longer, right? So I'm like, okay. And then I managed to talk to her that evening. And the next day I just felt really weird. Like there was something very strange going on. And there was like a real feeling of like yuckiness. And I couldn't describe what it was. And one thing that I know that works for me in terms of like my energy states is to go into nature, or I go to the sea, or something big, you know, like go on top of a hill or something like that. Just feel the expansiveness. So I walked down to the sea in Tel Aviv, and as I got to the sea, I heard I heard the waves, and from the waves this voice came, and it was my father. And my father literally was saying to me, "It's time to go and see your mum. This is your duty, like, and I want you to do it for me, right?" And I was like, "Whoa, like what the hell, like." That's weird, because also we scattered my dad's ashes in the sea as well. He was like very into sailing and everything. So there's all these connections coming through. And it was just really clear to me then that I had to go back. And I literally, I've been looking at flights from Dubai. So I was going to fly back to Dubai and then fly out. And all the flights were booked because it was like the end of holidays and I just couldn't get a flight for a few days. And I thought, I need to go back straight away. Like, I'm not even going to go to Dubai. So I looked at the Virgin flights. There's Virgin flights direct, and there was a flight the next day, lots of seats available, and then I realised in my app that I had lots of points that I had from years ago, so the flight cost me nothing. And then I got on the flight, and I was talking to the flight attendant, and she's like, "Oh, you're going back to see your mum? Oh, do you want to get upgraded into upper class?" I was like, no, it's fine. She's like, come on. So like they just looked after me all the way home. And it was like almost like these angels were like transporting me back to see my mother. And of course, when I did land, she died. You know, so, and I actually think she would have she wanted to do it like that. She didn't want to be surrounded by people. You know, there's a lot of research around this with animals and with people that they generally wait till there's no one around and then they pass away. So. Yeah, it was really strange, and I believe I don't think there's any scientific proof. This is very hard to know for sure, but I definitely have a sense that we get communications from the energies after they've passed away. You know, whatever that is, whatever labels we put on that.
Yeah, definitely. It was the same for me with my dad. I knew I had to go home.
Yeah.
Mom and sister was like, no, stay, you'll be fine. I'm like, I need to go.
You knew it.
I knew it. I needed to go home. And seeing my dad through the stages, because it was only a couple of days, right? It goes so fast. It doesn't go fast, but it goes fast. And he put everything in place, and he wanted to wait for me to come from Dubai. So once we were there, then he started to have the peace, and exactly what you said. We knew, my sister and myself knew we had to leave him alone for him to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when we gave in and gave him the blessing and told him it's okay, everything is sorted, please feel free to go, that's when he actually transitions. It's incredible.
I kind of feel it happened the same way with Janine as well, Janine's dad as well. But I'll tell you two interesting stories. So literally 2 days before dad transitioned, I was in Switzerland for a meeting for one of the partnerships for my school, and I had a vision, and those days I used to do a lot of meditation. I've kind of come down because of some of these experiences. I don't know whether they're real, they're mind-made, or whatever it is. I kind of literally, I was in the room thinking about him, and I saw him just get up and walk away from the bed. I had that feeling that's what he did, right? And I called up Janine and I was like, hey, is dad okay? I didn't want to tell her anything. She said, yeah, dad is doing great. In fact, the doctors are saying his vitals are getting better. So everything is sorted and stuff like that. And he was on the ventilator. And I was like, are you sure? Just, make sure that the next 24 hours and things are right. And you keep me posted. And when she said things are looking good, I was like, okay, fine. Maybe it's a hallucination. Maybe I'm thinking too much. I went to bed, got up the following day, went out for lunch for the meeting. Right after lunch, got a call that transitioned. And for me, it was weird because literally 24 hours before, I had this really strong feeling that he's going to leave. Cut to, I was very close to another uncle of mine who became closer to me when I moved to Dubai. And I used to see him, and he was suffering as well. And I used to go and see him in the hospital, at home, whatnot. Our entire family used to do that. His family became very close. My aunt is very close to me now. the daughters and my sisters and everybody. And the same thing happened with him. And I was in the bathroom showering. I literally had almost like a vision. He's sitting up, about to leave. He's taking a call whether he wants to leave or not. And at that moment, I had this weird thing that, okay, next 24 hours, 48 hours is going to be critical. So I had just gone through the similar experience with Janine's father, right? And that time I was like, what do I do? So what I did was I sent myself a message on my WhatsApp that, uncle's setting up to transition, 48 hours critical, this is. And 3 days later, he passed away.
Wow.
And both these unfortunate sort of realizations, which was on one side painful, but were very scary as well, got me thinking later to say, yes, once you are connected with the soul deeply and honestly, they communicate with you.
Yeah.
And their body might be in a location, but their energies communicate with you.
Yeah.
And that's what I got out of it.
Yeah.
Last quick story. So that transitioned, we went through the cremation process, so we obviously, and we got the ashes. They put it in a nice box, and so we went to the ocean in South Africa. So let it go. It's a ceremony that the Indians do. We did it. And the entire family is literally standing on the rocks by the water to let his ashes go into the water. All of us started slipping and falling down into the water. And I think his son, who was holding the box or something, it fell from his hand. So it was the box which had the plastic in it, and inside the plastic, like a wraparound plastic, was the ashes. The plastic was not locked. It was just like not even tight. It was just twisted, right? It fell down and it went into the water. And then we all were like, for literally 30 seconds, so not in 1-2 seconds, be like, oh my God, what does this happen? Maybe God wanted this. This is what happened. Maybe Dad wanted it. All of a sudden, I'm standing in the front, holding myself and all. All of a sudden, the empty bottle comes into my hand, and I lift it, and I was like, man, what the hell is this? But the bottle is empty. I put my hand down. All of a sudden, the plastic comes into my hand. I take that plastic up. It was a twisted plastic, literally, with the ashes inside. Not a drop of water inside.
What?
Not a drop. No ashes out. Came out as is.
Wow.
In my hand. And I gave it back to the family for them to do it. It was, I think we all go through these experiences, but I think some of us don't recognize it.
Yeah.
For me, what I've started doing is I recognize the communication. I understand that there's a logic behind this. I understand that this is just not circumstantial. It's much beyond that.
Yeah.
And I think to your point, when you're saying your mom being a mentor, when we start recognizing, we understand that they're still with us. And I think that's a very important message for people who go through grief, is because we always feel that we have lost the person. But in real sense, we have lost the physical form. But truly, we have them closer to us. And I feel that. And I always tell that to Janine as well. But these two experiences have been crazy for me.
Definitely. No, for me, with my father, he's around 24/7. He was somebody, he liked to be part of everything. He wanted to put his nose into everybody's business, not as in a mean way, but he just loved being part of everything. He's just this bundle of life, and he was a bundle of positivity. Even to his last breath, he was still positive. Even when he was in pain and agony, he was still saying to the doctors, I'm good. Everything is great.
Yeah.
So
that's amazing.
Out of his legacy, that's one thing. That's one of my missions ever, is to stay positive as much as you can.
Yeah.
But since he transitioned, oh my goodness, he's having a party. Then he's busy with me, with my life. Then he's busy with my sister. Then he's organizing my brother's store, and he's helping out my mom that she can travel. So all of a sudden,
he's everywhere.
He's everywhere, and he's having a party. You can feel it. He's just having the time of his life.
Yeah.
And he's there, constant. He was wanting to come to Dubai so badly, but because of getting older, it wasn't really possible. And now he's just like, okay, cool, I can come over, I can be with you, and it's absolutely incredible.
It's like Star Wars, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, when Obi-Wan Kenobi dies in the first, and he's like, oh wow, you're going to be more powerful now.
Yeah.
And he's just everywhere then, and that, I feel like that's it. And, like, with a lot of these things, I'm very skeptical. I'm very like, oh, this is just woo-woo. But actually, when you look at like even the latest research in science, you know, you look at like quantum physics, there's these theories of quantum entanglement.
Yeah.
And you know, when you do get connected to someone's energy,
Yeah.
you are interconnected with them.
It doesn't leave you.
It doesn't leave you, and I think as we get more, you know, our science now is just racing ahead with AI and all, you know, biotech and all these different sciences, and I think a lot of the old teachings from the old philosophies and old religions are going to get proven right. You know, as we start to get into quantum physics and we start to understand. You know, the quantum fields and the fact that they are real and we can measure them and we don't necessarily understand them and they act very strangely and they don't really follow the laws of physics, but they are there, you know. So I find all this really fascinating.
Yeah.
You know,
there is something though, I'll tell you. An AI simulation can replicate, let's say, your buying patterns, your mental thoughts, you know, things which you have done as an activity, but it can never replace how you converted that into an experience, right? And that's there's a term called qualia. You guys should look it up. It's how those decision points converts to an experience and how we find meaning in that experience. Science has not been able to crack that. It can actually tell you what to buy because it knows your choices. But when I buy that, what I feel, it can't quantify that. And I think that's an interesting thing. But going back to the earlier point that we were discussing, it's so amazing and inspirational what our families, our parents who transition teach us till the very end. You know, I just remembered Janine's father as you were talking. It's just, they're so inspirational. You know, he always said, go to work. He made sure that the family stayed together. He made sure that the family looked at each other as the most important thing in life. Those values that you know your family teaches you, that is what life is all about. And you know, and I kind of feel like, oh my God, he even taught me how to look at transition. You know, and for me it was the first personal close loss that I experienced and I went through, and I took it as a teaching, and I say it was so beautiful the way he taught me as well. So I think there's so much of lesson to be learned from our parents, and I think how we live going forward. Is the way we actually respect their existence, and with a lot of gratitude and lesson. So it's a reminder that we need to give ourselves that, okay, this is what my dad would have done, this is what my mom would have done, this is what I should do. And you can see the conflicts as well, right? Okay, my mom would have said this, but I kind of want to do that. So it becomes like really next to you as well. So yeah, interesting.
Yeah, very much. Very much.
Wow, that became an interesting conversation that we all three have gone through in a different format. Like in my case,
so what's like the positive takeaways from this then? Like you're a year on, I'm a few months on. You're a few months on.
Yes, I think. Should I start? Okay, I think for me, the takeaway is, we need to be mindful of the learnings. We need to know their existence. There is everything that is real can never die. Everything that is unreal will always die. So what we think is real, we should think really hard whether it is real or not, if that makes sense. And I kind of feel that a transition teaches you that, because if you're sensitive enough and intuitive enough, you feel their presence a lot more around you. But of course, you need to have a sense of gratitude and compassion when you want that energy to be felt. Also, the second thing it taught me that it's okay to go through pain, and pain is important as an emotion, but suffering is optional. And I think suffering is when you keep going back to those experiences and bringing them in the present. So go through the pain process and emote and be there, but be careful when you keep suffering through that. So these are my two sort of main takeaways.
It's really good.
Yours?
Do you want to go?
Sure. For me, my main takeaway is that life is super short. Enjoy physically, while we're in a physical body, enjoy each other's touch, each other's love and affection there and then. Make the most of it. As I said, it passes by so quickly. Absorb as much as you can of all the goodness that you have around you. Appreciate it. Indeed, show gratitude. And have the belief, have the confidence, have the spiritual journey and presence that once somebody transitions, that they're there with you and they'll always be there with you.
Yeah.
And that is something that is very intensely and beautiful. And I'll keep it short, but for us, my dad is in a heart form. When we left the hospital, my sister picked up this small little red heart balloon, and all the signs, if it's not felt emotionally, if we're not listening and being very within ourselves and we feel a little bit lost, little gifts come out as little signs. And with my dad, it's been hearts. And it's incredible.
Amazing.
At the most random, I can show you pictures, stories, at the most random elements of the day, of moments, he's there. And this is something that I think is beautiful to maybe even hold on to while we're in a physical state. But it seems like we don't have to be scared because there is something more beautiful out there.
Yeah. That's amazing. Love it.
Okay, so I think lots of takeaways, but two important ones for me. The first is really learn to appreciate life. You know, every day is a gift. Like, it's not, you can't take it for granted. Like, we could all end just like that in this form, this life. So make the most of it. Like, squeeze the juice out of it. Be glad that you're alive. Think of what you've got, instead of what you haven't got. You know, because we've got so much. Like, if you really think about this universe, it's so abundant. You know, and why not think of it like that? You know, that to me, that's a really amazing gift. And then I guess the other thing is it is short. You know, so do what you need to do. You know, make sure that you are moving things forward in your life, because it's going to be over pretty soon, and every year just goes past, you know, and sometimes you don't realise how quickly it goes past, and sometimes you don't realise how few years you have left. It's not that many summers that any of us have got left, you know, there's only so many. So they'd be the big things for me,
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, every day, I think all of us do.
Yeah.
Every day when we wake up, we have a little gratitude ceremony in our, well, I do anyway, within. And I think so many parts of life.
Yeah.
And, you know, life is beautiful.
Yes.
We've got this incredible earth. And I think everybody, as you said, need to make the most of it.
And I would say don't shy away from expressing your love for people.
Yes.
And and your gratitude for people, for every person, for every relationship, friendship, whatever it may be. It's a very, very important. People often don't do that enough, I think.
So, saying it on that note, I appreciate both of you very much, and I'm very happy I have got you in my lives.
Yes.
We're going to start crying.
Love you guys.
Love you guys. We'll love you. But it's true, right?
It's so true. And as we come to an end of this, I think this was a very sensitive topic, but what is more beautiful is that three of us got to be next to each other and be vulnerable and talk about it. And I think that's what the whole premise or the birth of this Dubai Soul Oasis is, which is friends sitting next to each other and having conversations and sort of connecting.
Yeah.
And I think so it's wonderful that we could do that today.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.
See you next time.
See you.